Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Break the Cycle, a podcast that focuses on how we shift from intergenerational trauma to intergenerational abundance. In this episode, I'm actually joined by my fellow cycle breaker and really the very first person in my family to break cycles and to teach me how to break cycles in a way that I felt was filled with abundance and filled with ingenuity and intuition, and she just knew what to do, and I don't know how. And I want to interview her to just get a sense of her own experience of breaking cycles and the ways that she actually came into breaking cycles on behalf of us, and how she, in essence, like taught the rest of us in our family to break cycles with each other. So I'm going to be bringing in my sister Lady, who is also the person to whom I dedicate the book, Break the Cycle, A Guide to Healing Intergenerational Trauma. And she's going to join me in conversation to have a heartfelt discussion about how we broke cycles as a unit, and also what legacies she's hoping to leave her son in the next generation. So without further ado, here's Lady. Okay. Hello.
How you
Hello.
doing?
Okay, y'all. So, in this episode of Break the Cycle with Dr. Mariel, I am joined only by Lady.
The real Dr. Mariel.
The one that's really behind the scenes and like really making things work. Um, and this is, really special for me to be able to have you on because, as I say, you have been, in essence, like, the one in our family to break the cycle. I wanted to start us off with actually like you reading the very first.
See, that's unexpected. You're going to make me read. I feel like I'm back in fifth grade. Read out
Here,
loud.
so read the dedication of the book.
Oh my God, stop. No. For my sister Lady, thank you for modeling for me how to break cycles with love at the center. May we continue to live out our intergenerational legacy. I love you to infinity. Ima. Love you. Love you. Oh my God. That's
You
so
deserve that.
beautiful.
I mean, like, you have been the one to help us to break cycles in our family. And you have also like helped me to build this entire healing protocol for other people to heal. Like, you're the hub. You're the center. Are you
See, I can
crying?
no.
I
See, you're not
stop
gonna do no,
crying.
you're
Are
not gonna
you
do me like
crying?
that. Okay? No, we're not crying. They're happy tears.
You could cry. I don't mean stop crying. I didn't mean that.
I mean, wow, it's overwhelming to see, how far this has come. And at the same time, it's like I'm so overjoyed because it like our life took such an unexpected turn, right? Like two girls being raised in Newark
Mm-hmm.
and by like technically a single mom because for the most part of our upbringing it was just mom there physically. So to see us kind of where we are now, like I'm really proud.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm proud of us. I'm proud of us as a whole unit. Like, I feel like we've all tried
Yeah.
to break in whatever ways we could a cycle of some sort. And it's been a little bit hard to really come to that realization
Mm.
because, as I have been, and you have too, right? Like, been through moments when it's been like, you know, it's been mostly anger or
Yeah.
resentment, or the feeling like, why couldn't they, blah blah blah, and
Right.
our parents, down to this very day, sometimes, they can get on our last nerve.
Oh my God.
That's the reality, right? Like, it's not like all like, roses and
No, no. I
butterflies.
mean, they're absolutely amazing people, great parents. But again, with every parenting relationship, I think there comes some struggles, and we have ours.
Yeah.
Especially I think they're more notable now as they're aging. it's like some of those like really like annoying habits are more like they've been more they have this other level now
Mm-hmm.
that
Well,
they're aging.
you said it the other day. You were like, it feels like we're reparenting our parents.
Yeah. Like even getting them like set and ready for today, I felt like I had to get three kids ready instead of one, right? And not even because I don't even got to worry about Aiden as much as I do mom and dad. And it's like, okay, mom, did you take your meds? Did you have this? Do you have that? And I feel like, I'm parenting our parents in a
Mm-hmm.
sense,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, in part, it's like such an honor. And then it's also like no one prepared us for this.
No, no, not at all. Because normal cycle of life, right? You grow up with your parents, you go apart from them, you build your own family, you have your own children, and then you're expected, I guess, in a way to come back in their later years when they're elderly and they need the extra help and assistance and kind of be there for them. But to have, at least like for me, this life where I haven't had a separation from them. And I've not only grown up, but also seen them evolve into different stages of life right there, next to me. Like, I feel like that's a different thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah. You've seen every evolution of their lives from
Yeah.
when they entered adulthood, down to this very day.
Yeah, and it's like now they're at that point where you start seeing some regression.
Mm-hmm.
They go back to almost being kids because it's like you have to remind them things multiple times. You have to, make sure like they're on top of the things they need to do.
Mom, did you eat? Right.
Appointments, doctor's appointments. I'm the one who
Mm-hmm.
has to keep record, or else they forget that they have an appointment, and
Mm-hmm.
then everybody's going crazy. So yeah, it's like those little things that nobody prepares you to deal with because the expectation is that your parents are going to age and then you're going to come and assist them, but to be there through the process of the aging, like there's no handbook. Is it in here?
It is. It is actually.
Good.
You know, one thing that for me has been really, it just wasn't something I was prepared for was in that regressive state that you're talking about them being in,
Mhm.
that I have been seeing a lot of their inner child wounds.
Oh
I
yeah,
wasn't ready for that
I know. And the memories, the things they remember, right?
in
The
such
things.
great
Oh wow.
detail.
Yeah, that's been shocking because like, us growing up, we heard stories, right? We heard stories about the family, we heard stories about them, but it's like now it has like a more profound feeling to the story. It's almost like they're back in that time.
Mm-hmm.
They're reliving that memory, and like, like we just witnessed dad getting very emotional because, of his memory of not having something he really wanted as a kid and going through that struggle and just growing up in poverty, right? Like that's
It's a trauma in and
it
of itself.
is. It
Yeah.
really is. Poverty in another country, because I think poverty here looks a little different,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I believe that, to some extent there's more assistance available to people. Whereas back home it's like, you're poor, poor,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I mean, a neighbor might help you here and there, a distant family member that's probably doing better off, might send some food over, things like that. But, the poverty is really felt
Mm-hmm.
over there.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to experience it as children and have that impact in their life, right? Where it's like, just a real pain, right? Of not being able to have some bare necessities. Like
Mm-hmm.
that tears me every time. I think that's part of the reason why I feel like I became so giving,
Mm-hmm.
right? As a person in general, and just always wanting to make sure we have what we need. at all times, and that was a driven motivation for me, really.
Yeah, it has been, but like I mentioned in the book and like we've spoken about, I think it also, has been something that you've layered on your shoulders, to a degree where it has been, as I have seen it, it's not that you've said these words, but I've seen it as an overburden. You've carried our family for a very long time on your shoulders, and no one person should ever have to do that. And you've done that ever since you were little.
Well, I think I mean, I don't want to call it this, but I guess that's like the curse of the, first generation immigrant child, right? That we feel like, the obligation almost like to carry our family through because so much is invested and put on our shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we brought you here so you can have a better future. So you gotta do right. You gotta succeed. You gotta, dot all your I's and cross all your T's because so much depends on you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you cannot fail, right? So is that pressure that can be turned into something good, but it could also be your demise
Mm-hmm.
because depending on how you process it, that can put you in a really bad state mentally, physically. Some people can't seem to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put themselves down for it, right? Whereas, luckily for me, it was the opposite of that spectrum where because I knew so much was depending on me. I it propelled me into doing better, into making good choices, into always thinking about, consequences of things because I'm like I can't mess up. Because, I'll be letting mom down, I'll be letting dad down. Now I'm an example for you. Like, so yeah, it's a lot. And I think anyone in first generation can relate to that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely, in part, I blame the systems that we have to then live under, both the systems in DR and also the ones, within the US, because they perpetuate poverty for the poor. They perpetuate poverty for individuals that are migrants and immigrants to this country. And as a result, it makes it so that, we have to, in essence, have first daughters, enter the workforce early
Right.
and miss their childhood
Mm-hmm.
and care for their younger siblings because the parents have to work two jobs and are never around, right? Like it's it's not that our families are choosing this, it's that
It's the
this
way of life.
it's the systems that
Yeah.
are imposing
Mm-hmm.
this way of life upon us,
Right.
in part, right? And so it frustrates me also on a systemic level, which I talk about within the book, that there are systemic factors that are also a part of that. And then there's also cultural things, like it's in the culture for, the eldest to also take care of everybody else.
Yeah.
It's not just, and it happens even in elder siblings that maybe have more financial stability than what we had growing up. It's
Mm-hmm.
just too much of the norm, and it robs children of their childhood in ways that it has done for you.
It does. And in part, also, like I mentioned before, I always try to take something from these experiences that has been beneficial to me. And although, yes, I did have to grow up a little, you know, faster than most kids that weren't in the same situation. I had to mature and get a job and do all these things while, still navigating all the changes and nuances of high school, right? But I think that also kind of shaped me. It shaped my personality. It shaped my beliefs and it really made me part of who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm proud of that. Like I don't, I, everyone wishes some part of their life was different, right? But I think that for me is if I would have changed anything, it probably just would have been like having that around, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But not so much for me, but more like a support to mom.
Mm-hmm.
than for me because I saw what his absence did to her, right? But I think that aside from that, I wouldn't change anything because I I am able to be this person now because I've been shaped by those experiences.
And I love this person. I love who you are. I feel like you have like the steadiness about you that is so grounding, and it shows in your son. Like your son is very much like that person too. And me, since I'm so hot headed and like, such a
We need a little
firecracker,
crazy in the family though.
I resent that on many levels, not just because I don't
Uh,
even use the word crazy,
e-
but because
everybody has a little, right, in the family, like the black sheep they call them.
I'm certainly the black sheep.
Yeah, the person that just goes against everything, every rule. She's the rule breaker. She's and just like she's breaking rules, she's breaking cycles.
Hmm.
Like it's an ongoing thing for you, huh?
Yeah, that's just, I was born this way, as Lady Gaga says. But it's almost like that TikTok of like,
Right.
that TikTok of the family there in front of like the Buckingham Palace, and then they
Mm-hmm.
pan to the one family member, and he's like, "This institution." That's me,
Yes.
literally. That's me.
Yeah, everybody's enjoying the moment while you're finding fault. Like, okay, no, something's off here.
I'm just too conscious.
Yeah.
There's no
She's
such
she's
there's no
woke.
such thing. There's no. I don't believe in that. I just like expanding my mind and understanding the realities of this world, and then integrating that into my work. And
Absolutely.
but it does hurt too, because there was a,
Yeah.
a long period of time where I was getting all this awakening and
Mm-hmm.
consciousness raising in my life that was happening mostly in academia,
Yeah.
and I was bringing that back to our family
Mm-hmm.
with rage, because I was like, you guys don't understand, like you must do this, you can't do that,
Yeah.
and it felt very forceful,
Mm-hmm.
and it led me nowhere. I mean, it created boundaries, but the boundaries were built on pain, and that's not. So I made sure that I, in my own evolution, like I was like, okay, that isn't the way that I believe I need to be trying to break these cycles, because it is just creating other cycles.
Yeah.
um and I'm not perfect. Just the other day, like I had like a fit with mom, and mom, like, she erected a boundary with me and shook me.
I know. I
I
was
was
kind of
like,
proud of
I know,
her.
me too. Like, excuse me, doña.
Yeah.
So in part, I was like, you
Okay.
you
Like,
heard me. I was
yeah,
like,
you
I'm sorry,
respected it.
mom.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly. I mean, because we gotta also model what we
yeah.
preach.
And you could
Like,
tell she was thrown off guard.
I mean, yeah, like we talk about no, because you have to respect my boundary on this, that, and the other. But
Yeah,
when they're throwing it back at us, we're like, okay, like we also need to,
yeah, yeah.
respect their boundaries. So,
I was so proud of
that,
her, because she kept saying, like, I suffered a lot in my life,
yeah.
and this is not something that I'm willing to
Mm-hmm.
allow, because
Yeah.
it perpetuates suffering for me. I'm no longer. And I was like, I
Oh,
heard it.
right.
I heard it, and I am not contesting that, and I honor that for you, and you're right, and it
I love
really
it,
sunk
and
in.
I love it, and at the same time, I feel like, wow, it took it took her this long,
Hmm.
right? Like you're in your senior years, and it took you this long to understand your worth, your value, and to stand up for yourself in that way. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm proud of her for doing it. And at the same time, there's a little bit of grief, right? Because it's like, you're glad that it's like your child, like when you're glad like they finally get something. Same applies with your parents. It's like they finally got it, but it came with a price, right?
Hmm.
They had to she had to take a lot of punches in order for her to finally like say, "No, I'm not
Hmm.
willing to do that anymore."
Hmm. Yeah.
It was a nice moment,
You
you
know
know.
what else is like, a little bit of like bittersweet, almost grief stricken, is the fact that we are seeing this evolution in them, and it's only a fraction of what we get to experience of them in this lifetime. I mean, we don't know when we're all gonna go, right?
Right.
But it's like we saw them more in pain than not.
Then not. Yeah.
And that's so sad because they didn't have the tools. They didn't that's a part of why, I feel like I have been even so forceful about wanting to break these cycles because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, let's get out of pain. I don't want this
Yeah.
anymore. I don't want this for our family. We don't,
The struggle,
yeah.
the constant struggle to just to live, really, just to live and to live with the nuances of that life throws at you. And it's sad that that's not the case for most families, that they don't get to experience that breakthrough, right? They stay in that state of suffering and struggle, and they continue to just kind of carry that on generation after generation. So I think that, in part, I want to say that we had a lot of influence in that. We had a lot to do with that. The fact that our parents are able to reach that part of their life now because, you know,
That they're
we
able to break these
they're able to
cycles.
break
Some of them,
cycles,
yeah, whatever
some,
they can, yeah.
at this age because we have had the tools
Hmm.
to to allow them to do this,
Yeah,
right?
reverse
And
modeling almost.
yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't have even
No.
parents that are willing to actually engage in the
So then, like, what
process.
do you do, right?
Right.
You buy Dr. Mariel's book. But no, seriously, guys, I mean, for people that just can't get to this point in their life with relatives, with parents especially, it's very hard, and it's very hard to kind of almost show them that their way is the wrong way,
Hmm.
which is not what they want to hear, right? But like, what is it that you can do in those situations? You model that life for them, right? You model that parenting style
Hmm.
for them. When you're around your children, when they are around your children, you say, we do things like this,
Hmm.
you know?
Even if they are still giving you fuss about it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And you hear them out, because shutting them down completely is not going to get you anywhere. You hear them out, but you also show them this is why we do it like this, and it works.
So this is why it's super important because that's what you taught me. Because like I said, you were giving Aiden so much leeway and I was like, what is she doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it almost like because it went against what I've been taught because our mother was very strict.
Yeah,
And so for me, it didn't make any sense that you were being so lenient
right.
and you were informing me as to why you were being that way
Mm-hmm.
and how you were trying to build agency in Aiden, and all those things really
That
resonated.
part, the building agency, I think is the part that I was like really focused on because, our mother taught us to kind of almost like depend on each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but what if we didn't have each other?
Mm-hmm.
Who are we to turn to? Who are we to depend on? So, building agency in my son was something that I took seriously, not only because he was an only child, but also because as an individual, he needs to know himself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Apart from his family. Like, you are someone in this world that, your family is a part of you, but it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
You are self defined and you take the tools, you take the advice, you take the things that we implement for your good, but you're going to modify that, right? You're going to modify that based on your personality, based on what works for you, based on your attitude, based on your life experiences, because we don't all experience the same things. And even there's been tests with people that experience the same situation at the same time having different perspectives, right? So it's all, a matter of like just knowing that you're giving this child, this offspring, this member of your family, doesn't have to be your child, you know, whatever has worked for you, whatever is best from you, you give it to them, right? But you got to allow them to do what they feel and think is going to work for them. You
Mm-hmm.
can't tell them no because I did it like this, that's the way you got to do it. No, I did it this way. I'm letting you know. Now you can take that tool, you apply it the same way, or you can use it differently, however it suits you, because you have the information, you have the tool. Now apply that in your life.
But how did you learn to do that? That's always been the biggest mystery to me because we didn't learn that from anywhere that I can identify.
I parent my son the way I wished I was.
Mm.
That's just the bottom line. I'm the mother to Aiden that I wish I had, with the emotional maturity, with the resources that, we didn't have. I am trying to be that for him.
Mhm. It's so fascinating because I see exactly what you mean. We had a very stern and our mother. I feel like she had a lack of flexibility that I wish
Hmm.
but she was always mothering from a place of fear because we lived in Newark,
Yeah.
New Jersey. We were, kind of like mostly unsupervised because she had to
Hmm.
work, right? And so she
Yeah.
was so afraid that we would,
And we were girls,
we were girls.
like,
And, I think she was really afraid of what could happen should she not be strict enough.
right?
But that didn't allow us to have enough of a voice, which I see in
No.
myself.
Hmm.
I have struggled so much with finding my voice. I now have it, but it was a struggle. And
Yeah.
I know that, you've had your own like versions of how,
Gosh, to this day, I'm still scared of mom. Like,
well,
when she gets
she's
mad,
so
I'm like,
frail. Well, not, yeah.
yeah.
But I do
But
love the
see,
mother we have
we
now.
do. Yeah. I mean,
She's like
it's like a
so different.
360. Yeah. But that transformation also came from, you know, just how we evolved
Mhm.
as, people, right? We took what she gave us and we applied it in our own way.
Mhm.
We took the good, we took the bad, we chose what we wanted to keep and what we didn't. And we evolved into our own person, right? And by us having that evolution, we were able to then come back to our parents and teach them a better way.
Mhm. I also feel like they have been like teaching us what they have actually done. Like there's a lot of okay, Latina moms, really moms or parents, but there's a Latina mom thing, right? Where it's like, what I have done for you and just kind of
Oh
really like
yeah,
guilt
like
tripping you.
reminding you of of the sacrifices.
Right. And she definitely did that. And I
Yeah.
almost started interpreting it as like you're trying to guilt trip me and it's manipulative. But I didn't eventually as I kind of like listened to the entire sentence,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what, mom, you're right. You were there.
Mm-hmm.
And like she said, in the episode with her, like the presence of a parent is
The
important. And she
presence.
was there. She wasn't perfect, but there I always knew my mom loved me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was
And that no
important.
matter what happened, I mean, whether you were going to have to face her with good or bad consequences, you knew she was going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's reassuring for sure, because every kid should feel like, they have that person to turn to, they have that security.
Hmm.
Security is so primal, especially with these young adults now,
Hmm.
that they really think they're facing life alone,
Yeah, yeah.
you
I
know?
mean, it's a scary world for the next generation for sure that we're creating because millennials were and Gen X we're in great part creating the world that they're a part of. But the last thing that I wanted to kind of touch on with you is in reference to, you know, what happens when there are cycles that remain unbroken when our parents are no longer here. I've thought about that for
Mm,
myself and I know that you and I have had like loose conversations about it where it's like
yeah.
we know they're not going to change this part of
Yeah.
themselves. That's just like so
It's just
ingrained.
how they are. And
And we love the 80% of our parents I love, right? But
yeah,
there's sometimes that 20% where we
that
look at each
20.
other and we're like, "Are you
Mm.
serious?" But, in part like I've leaned on like, you know what? Grace because
That's really the key. It is grace, because you know what? You're not going to make a full change in one generation.
mhm,
You know, the the goal here is for every generation after you to be better, right? And maybe one day it'll reach a perfection, but is for us not to get stuck, right, in repeating the cycles, but instead to have each generation take something and continue to improve, continue to grow.
Mm.
You know, it's not going to be done in one family, it's not going to be done with our parents, it's not going to even be done with us, but we can hope that what started with us will continue
Yeah.
to flourish.
Yeah. I love that. I love doing life with you.
Me too.
I feel very blessed and grateful that I get an opportunity to have a sister that I can break cycles with. And it's why in the book I included like find your person because it
Yeah.
makes a difference.
You can't do life alone.
Yeah.
You need people. It takes a village, like they say. But if you have like that one good person, you're solid
Mhm. For life.
for life.
Love you. There you have it. This was a wonderful episode. I hope that you really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the vulnerability. I hope that you enjoyed the actual lessons and the details within. And if you want to get into your own cycle breaking journey and need the tools for yourself, for your family members, friends, people that you love, then I invite you to buy my book, Break the Cycle, A Guide to Healing Intergenerational Trauma, where you'll be able to guide yourself through the different areas of intergenerational healing and really have a roadmap for the work ahead. I hope that you can hold steady to your heart and that you can feel settled as you navigate these tough terrains of breaking cycles and just know that the work is worthwhile at the end. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.